All right, welcome back. It is post time here at Gold Coast After Dark, Season 2, Episode 5, with your friend, me, BP. All right, welcome back. We are continuing with the unintended series of videos for the unintended sequel to the fairy tale known as After Halloween. The unintended sequel is, of course, a fragile thing that can only exist where fragile things are loved. Now, you recall yesterday, or at least the last time we met, I'd finally met up with the twinkly eyed saxophonist, found out his name was Dennis with two N's because he is not French. Um, we ended up going, we talked a bit. We sat alongside a very small lake that he showed me, whose existence I was not aware of. Um, but I was sort of running down in a hurry, so we cut things short, but agreed that the next morning, if I felt better, that we would meet again at the lake. Failing that, we would meet there again the next time I felt well enough to do so. So here we are. Here's our old pal, Mr. Three of Spades. So we know it's now really time to start. And so I've arrived at this small lake, and Dennis greeted me. Feeling better today? You look like you've had a good night's sleep. The day was indeed sunny and warm. There was a gentle breeze, which heightened the sense that the gray and dismal days of late winter were well and truly gone. I am feeling better, thank you. And you? Well, can't complain. The sun was just above the tree line. The two-thirds of the lake nearest us was golden in the sunlight. The remaining third was little more than a dark line in the shadow of the distant trees. Now, there were more ducks than I had seen yesterday, uh, circling and quacking their way around the lake in little duck flotillas, and we know how Dennis feels about ducks. There's also several grebes uh, weaving their way in and out of the reeds looking for nesting places, I suppose. A grebe, again, an interesting looking bird, and one which until the day before was wholly unknown in my experience. Finally, there was a solitary blue heron, uh, which stood in the shallows maybe 30 yards away from us and just watching, which is what herons do. I'm afraid I've dropped a ball this year, Dennis. He was holding his floppy hat level with his forehead, shading his eyes as he looked out across the lake. I'm sorry, what? Dropped the ball? How do you mean? I missed so many days, man. It's embarrassing. Well, you've come as often as you could, right? Can't ask for more than that. Yeah, but I said I'd be here. He took a few moments to put his hat back on, settle it properly, and smooth out the brim. As I recall, you said you'd come and play your flute as often as you could. Now, my understanding is that the arrangement worked out to everyone's satisfaction last year. Yeah, but that was last year. Now, this year is a different year, and circumstances have changed. You weren't well all winter. By your own admission, you aren't well now, and if you'll forgive my saying, there's no indication of full recovery. It's just around the corner. As such, no one expects you to be here every day. Now, what about the crows? Your friends, the crows? Well, what about them? Are they going to be expecting, daily progress reports or something? Well, they're concerned, is all. There may not be as many on some days, and, often no more than one or two, but that's what they do. Dennis used his hat to shade his eyes again, this time looking skyward. Ever bother to look above you? Overhead, 5 crows wheeled around in a circle. Now, if I might make a suggestion, oh, please, by all means, when you get a chance, work out a set of signals, maybe the old thumbs up on the good days and then wave off on the bad. Give the signal from the same place every day so they know where to look. What do you think? Well, I thought it was a darn good idea, and I said so. I could give the signal from the window of my studio slash study slash office slash storage space. There was a tree directly opposite it, and as well as the rooftops and another tree across the street, and of course there was always the top of the shed. Now, make sure you assure them it's nothing personal. Only that there are those who might find the sight of crows first thing in the morning unsettling. They won't be offended. No, they know it's true. They don't understand it, but they accept it as true all the same. Have you ever tried to explain it to them, Dennis? No point. I don't understand it either. Tell me, Dennis, how long were you here before I came along? Now, we were walking down one of the little avenues that led away from the lake. There were obvious signs that the Highland cattle had passed here before us, and not too long before us, though from which direction I couldn't tell. Oh, I don't know, quite honestly. But time is just another illusion, really, isn't it? I mean, you can't put some in your pocket to save for later. You certainly can't see it. Now, I've heard it said time is money, but it seems some people's time is worth more than other people's times. I've even heard it can be different times in different places at the same moment. Now, how can that be? There's probably a simple explanation for it all, but I seem to manage without it. Okay, well, but what about the changing seasons? That's a way of telling time, isn't it? Not quite the same, I don't think. Would you feel comfortable trying to schedule your life based on weather patterns that ran for 91 and 1/5 days, more or less? I guess I see your point. I've never seen a fox wearing a watch. I don't expect I ever shall. Same could be said for owls, squirrels, assorted snakes, and insects. In this world, everything happens when it's supposed to happen. There is no time in the forest. Well, a lot has happened since you've been away, Dennis. Have you seen what they're doing? They're cutting the heart out of the forest. What are you talking about? How long has this been going on? Just a couple of weeks, but it's bad, and I think they're just getting started. We were walking along a path that wound through the forest in a more or less southwesterly direction. Now, unless it took a sharp turn to the right or left soon, my guess was it wouldn't be long before we reached the recently cut section close by Boogie's Hill. A few minutes later, we reached the eastern edge of a broad expanse littered with the trunks and branches of hundreds of trees. Dennis took his hat off before stepping into the clearing. I had no idea. Didn't the crows tell you? No, they didn't. Well, not as such. They said trees were being cut down, but in a general sort of way. It's not like they expected me to do anything about it. This is horrible. Such a waste. Such a terrible, terrible waste. We picked our way through toward Boogie's Hill, and the tree line he once said was as far as he would go. Do you know why they've done this? Yeah, I do. I thought they were going to build an extension of the sports complex that I pass on my way here. I heard the other day, though, they're building a complex for scouting jamborees with enough parking and camping, bathrooms and showers for hundreds of people, if not more. I don't understand. Scouting jamborees? Basically, Dennis, it's a lot of people of all ages playing games and staging contests in what they consider the great outdoors for a few days. I've no idea what the point of that is. Character building and bonding, I guess. In my experience, those are the usual reasons given for such things. I still don't understand. They're destroying the forest so that people have a place to play games? Yeah, pretty much. Let's go to the oak and talk. I can't stand this. It's monstrous. At the oak, we each sat on one of the large exposed roots that snaked out a few feet from the base of the tree before disappearing back into the earth. My backpack was on the ground. Dennis's hat was once more in his hands. We both may have been waiting for the other to speak first. Neither of us had spoken on the walk from the clearing. But what was there to say? Lacking any sort of remark, I opted for a question. Okay, stop me if you've heard this before, Dennis, but like, where did you go when you left here? I'm sorry, what? When you left the other year, where did you go? And why did you have to leave? Oh, well, remember I said in this world, everything happens when it's supposed to happen, right? Yeah, and I'm aware of that. I pointed it out quite a few times in my books. You don't get presented with anything till you're ready for it. And the universe doesn't make mistakes. You've written about this? How many books have you written? Oh, 22 or 23, all rather short, generally 100 pages or less. You're saying it was time for you to go? It was. But I couldn't leave the forest on its own. I had to know there would be someone who would care for it as I had. As it turned out, that someone was you. Okay, were there others? No. You were the only one who heard my saxophone. You heard it, you came looking for me. No one else. So you were the one. Maybe you should have held out a little bit longer, Dennis. Well, what do you mean? Someone local might have come along who had some clout and could have stopped all this before it got started. I can't do anything about it. My dear boy, no one expects you to. Did you know this was going to happen? Of course not. But as you say, the universe doesn't make mistakes. It couldn't be foreseen, but it doesn't come as a surprise. It's the sort of thing that happens, whether we like it or not, and there's nothing to be done about it, like it or not. The universe doesn't make mistakes. I had the feeling I was being put to the test by my own words, a sort of karmic, put up or shut up. Had I written those words, and perhaps others, not because I believed in them, but because of how they sounded, and for the effect they might have on the reader? No, I had never written anything I didn't truly believe, or didn't know to be true at the moment I wrote it. I knew the truth of that sentence, that the universe doesn't make mistakes, as sure as I knew the sun rose in the east every morning. Dennis continued. Everything in this world, in its way, is precious. Now, many people recognize this, but many more don't. Some of these precious things have a strength that allows them to persevere, but some of the most precious things are also the most fragile. So fragile they can only exist where fragile things are loved. And love, it seems, doesn't mean all that it once did. Or maybe it means too many things now. And the protection it once offered has become another one of those oh so fragile things. The weight of Dennis's words left me speechless. I could think of no suitable response to any of what he had just said. Now, the best I could do was to ask a predictable and feeble question. So what now? Nothing. There's nothing to be done. The forces in motion will eventually play themselves out. That's the only thing anyone can ever be sure of. Yeah, well, they could cut down the entire forest. Well, yeah, they could. Doesn't that bother you? Doesn't that make you angry? It bothers me, but it doesn't make me angry. There's nothing I can do about it. My anger won't change that. Anger is a thief of energy, and a destroyer of harmony. I refuse to submit to it. Well, that's not going to help the forest any, Dennis. It won't harm it either. What's happening and whatever ends up happening will go on regardless of how either of us think, feel, or what we try to do. We have no control over it. It's a hard lesson to have to learn, but one that has to be learned nonetheless. You look weary. I am weary, Dennis. I think it's going to be a hard trip home. But what about you? Where are you going to go? Hopefully to a place where fragile things are loved. I stood to leave. Will we meet again? Well, who can say? As long as we remain open to the possibility will exist, don't you think? I couldn't help but smile. I'm going to miss you, Dennis. And I you, dear boy. Here's Mr. Dancing Jack of Hearts. See you next time.